So it'll be fun to have them out there at TCF Big Stadium and get as many reps as we possibly can to get these guys prepared. You know, as you start to get closer, you start to back down, but I'm proud of this group. They've just continued to go and go and go. You know, we're getting better, and that's a good thing to see, is you're actually coaching football. You're not coaching the culture or how you're doing something anymore. You're teaching the fundamentals, the details. You're coaching the scheme, coaching the player, the person. It's a lot of fun to coach, you know, because everybody, like, again, you get the second year, and everybody's pretty familiar with how you do things. So now you can really focus it on everything else.
How have Mo and the other two true freshman running backs looked these couple weeks?
Yep, they're getting better. They're young, you know, they're young, inexperienced, just like a lot of kids on our football team, but we've accelerated their learning so quickly. I think Kenny Burns, our running back coach, is a fantastic teacher. And I'd love to sit in his running back meetings, because the way he coaches and the way he teaches is something I take a lot of pride in as an elementary school teacher. You have to make sure everybody in that room, no matter if they have this or they have that or have this learning disability, or they have, you know, they're really smart and intelligent, whether they learn from the actual seeing something or hearing something. He does all of that in terms of he reaches everybody in his room. And no matter what level you are. You have Rodney Smith, who's been here a long time, played a lot of football. Then you have a bunch of guys that never haven't played a lot of football, but they're still learning the same play, the same techniques, the same fundamentals. But what Kenny Burns does is, you know, he makes sure everybody learns it their own way. And that's really good to see. And you can start to see the running backs developing that way. Now again, we haven't seen them have a full scrimmage yet. We'll find out tomorrow about where we are in the running back room and who starts to set themselves in different positions. Because once you come out of tomorrow, what you want to be able to have is, you're not going to have the whole roster set, but you want to be able to start to have the idea of who you're going to start leaning towards with reps as you start getting into Thursday and Friday, and then that following week we're already starting New Mexico State. So, you know, we're getting closer.
What are you hoping to see out of your quarterbacks tomorrow that'll help you make a decision on a starter?
Well, you'd like to have somebody sooner or later start separating themselves. I think they're both really doing a great job of competing with each other, but it goes down to just one, taking care of the ball, two, decisive decision making, and three, you know, who can win the football team? You know, who plays better when somebody else is on the field? You know, who does the team feel better with, more comfortable with? And it's all about winning the team, and that's what we have to continue to develop.
Benny Sapp was back today. How do you look?
Yeah, we're easing him back in. You know, I mean, there's no rush necessarily. You know, he's a really good football player. It's just he's had so many injuries that you've just got to be careful with how many reps you give him, and especially when he hasn't been in our strength program very long. You know, one thing about our strength program, Dan Nickel, I think, is one of the best in the country, and our whole staff, Coach Marcus, Coach Ben, Coach Cole. I mean, they really work really hard at keeping our players on the field, and they take a lot of pride in that, and our players do too, with how hard they work. You know, it just depends on, you know, one, limiting his reps, but two, making sure he stays on the field just in terms of his health. I think you'll see him continue to be healthy the longer he's in this program. You know, he's really a high school senior still. You know, when you start to look at a lot of these kids, they haven't been in a whole Division I strength program, nutrition program, on a diet, haven't had everything, you know, that a year one really entails yet. But that's a position that we're in terms of having a lot of freshmen.
Last week you mentioned how Kirk Shaka brings out things in quarterbacks. What are some examples of those things where he brings out the most of them?
Well, again, same thing. He's an incredible teacher. One thing Kirk Shiraka is that I think better than most people I've ever been around is an unbelievable listener. And one of the best qualities of an elite leader and elite teacher is being a wonderful listener. Sometimes we think leadership is just somebody that talks all the time. It's somebody who can really step back, listen, digest the information, and then give it back to people the way they need it, so they can grow. That's what you see. He gives them things in steps, the way we teach it, whether it's a pure progression, whether it's a progression with an option, you know, all of the systematic approach we do, he breaks all that down. And, you know, he's so in touch with how they all learn, which I think is incredible, to be able to get the most out of them every single day. You know, I'd like to be able to pull out one specific thing, but he's so good at everything, you know, from the reads to the fundamentals to the balance to the center of gravity, the core, you know, and giving them what they can handle. One thing I think he's really good at is he doesn't give them too much that they can't handle. He's not ever going to push them over an edge where they lose confidence in themselves, but he'll push them to where they've got to change and they've got to grow and they're uncomfortable. But I think there's a big difference between being uncomfortable and then a kid just becoming a failure and thinking he's not good enough. And I think there's a balance to that, and I think that's what he's really, really good at. He keeps it on the uncomfortable side, but keeps their confidence really high. That's hard to do when you have 2 freshmen out there. Very hard to do, and he's doing a really good job of that.
How have your zookeepers been developing on the defensive line?
Oh, the zookeepers, yeah. Special individuals, you know. Winston and Jerry, just wonderful people. And you know, when they have a summer job or they go to the zoo, and I told them they should have had their own reality show. I think that would have been amazing to watch those 2 at the zoo and watching their day. I think that would have been very interesting because they both have an incredible personality separately. And then when you put them together, it's like fireworks. It'll light up a room pretty quick. They're getting better. You know, our whole D line's getting better. You know, Joe Rousey is really developing that crew and our pass rush moves and what we're doing with our pass rush with Marcus West and how we've been able to design that. I really like the progression we're making in that area as well.
With Denell Green, what have you seen in his progress up to this point, and what's the ceiling for him?
Well, I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's very athletic, very talented. Denell Green can be as good as Denell Green wants to be. What we have to get Denell to do is he's got to, just like everybody, but probably one of the most, is he's got to mature the most. So what he has to do, he's got to want to do. And that's where I've seen the biggest growth, is sometimes along the road when we first got him, what you had to do necessarily maybe wasn't what he wanted to do. Like a lot of guys on our football team, you know, change is hard, and you get in there and you know, you got guys buying in at different times, but he's getting to the point where he knows what he has to do. He's getting demanded to do those things, and now you start to see Denell Green want to do it, and that's when it becomes pretty scary in a good way, when he starts doing it, and now all of a sudden he's leading that group, he's being vocal with that group, he's doing all the right things, making all the right calls, helping the young guys. It's good to see. We need him to do that, and he's finally starting to do that a little bit more and more each day, which helps our football team.
Given a lot of reps to Terrell Smith, CJ Smith, Josh Ani, a bunch of freshmen that you're going to be counting on. What have you seen from them?
The fight. I've seen a ton of fight. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to know our schemes perfectly yet. They're not going to know all the fundamentals yet perfectly. They have fight. All 5 of those freshman DBs, I mean, they fight. And I give them a lot of credit. Not one of them have really missed any time. They're in there competing. They're going against some great players who have played a lot of football here. And they won't back down. They're a tough group, you know, very confident group. But we knew that coming in. We had to find 5 guys that were confident that could, hopefully 3 of the 5, 5 of the 5, 2 of the 5 had to help us. I said at the beginning of training camp, if our freshman DBs help us, we'll be a better football team because we can provide depth in the secondary and do some other things with some other people. And I'm starting to see that come together. You know, we're going to have a lot of freshmen play, both sides of the ball, especially in the back end at some point. Whether that's special teams or whether we're going to have a ton of freshmen play special teams. But if you get into the defensive schematics, you know, we're going to need those guys to be able to play. So I think Rob Smith and our whole defensive staff is doing a great job developing them. It's not easy what they're going through. I know that they're probably sitting there going, wow, this is way different than high school. But that's why they came here. We talked to them, hey, listen, when you come here, you're going to play. And everybody wants that until you get it. You know, and I think they're all going through that little bit of a stage right now. And yeah, I know you said we were going to play, but maybe I thought that was recruiting talk. I don't know. I mean, that was real. When you come here, you were going to play, and they're getting, you know, force-fed the information. But for, you know, 12, 13 days, they haven't skipped a beat. They haven't missed a beat in terms of scheme or technique or fundamentals. They look like they've been here a long time, and that's a credit to Coach Mao.